I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. I think we do have two council members that are on the line. I think Mr. Trapp and
Yes, sir.
Mr. Douglas have called in. So thank you guys for joining. We'll go ahead and call this Monday, May 11th, 2020, 6 p.m. meeting to order. Do I have the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Chair.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? We'll take a vote. Mr. Trapp? Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Council? Current?
Yay.
All right, the approval has passed. Now we'll have the invocation. Mr. Douglas, if you would, please.
All right. Dear Lord, help us to understand how to be unselfish during this pandemic and keep us all safe. Praise God and watch over our elderly in this trying time. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Douglas. Now we have the approval of the budget work session dated April 22nd, 2020, and our regular meeting dated April 27th, 2020. Do I have a motion?
Mr.
Seconded.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor? Mr. Trapp? Mr. Douglas?
Aye.
Council currently in chambers?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes passed. We have a public presentation, proclamation in remembrance of Sheriff Herman Young. I'm sure council staff are currently familiar with him. Also, I think we lost a past council member as well, Mr. Robinson. So we'll do something for him as well. Instead of reading all this, I'll just say a few words. I worked for Mr. Young for approximately 12, 13 years, and it was a great experience. You know, he always gave me great advice, especially in life. I think law enforcement was more to just doing your job. It was kind of any hat day for everybody. So I'll just say to the family, he will be missed, and he left a great mark in this county. Any other council members like to say anything?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair and audience, I served as the chairman of the board for the Sheriff's Success Academy for about 4 years. What the Sheriff's Success Academy did was work with underprivileged youth. We did things with them like education initiatives, educational tools, historical tools. We did a lot of things, and that was one of Mr. Young's vision for Fairfield County to make sure that everyone, and especially the underprivileged, had opportunities that wasn't afforded to them by by but just by their whether they had money and that kind of stuff. So that's one of the things he did, and again, I served as the chairman of the board for that group for probably a little over 4 years.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I just want to say I worked for Sheriff Young for about 14 years. He was a great sheriff, great man, did a lot for Fairfield County. Also want to say something about Marion Robinson, whose seat that I'm currently filling for Marion Robinson. He also was a great man, and I knew him personally, and always had good words for Fairfield County and wanted Fairfield County to be on the right path. So prayers to his family, prayer to Sheriff Young's family. And I also had the pleasure of working with Miss Harriet Albert, who was a former 911 dispatcher. Great dispatcher. I think she worked a long time for Fairfield County. So prayers for her family.
That's true. I forgot about Miss Harriet. I think during this COVID, we've lost so many people. It's hard to keep track nowadays. See, Mr. Gilbert has joined us from District 7. We're just doing the proclamation for Sheriff Young. Have any words, encouragement, or anything you want to say?
Yes, my sentiments goes out to the fans, condolences. Mr. Young was a super guy. I had the privilege of talking with him on several occasions, and he was an inspiration to me. And it's a big loss for Fairfield County. I just want the family to know that he was a model county. Definitely going to be missed.
Yes, sir. Vice Chair Goins.
Good evening, and I too would like to send my condolences to the family. I did not have a personal contact with the him, reputation preceding him, and I thank God for his labor of love to the community, also to Marion's family. I did get to know him personally, and I would consider him as being a true friend from the beginning to the end. My condolences and prayers are with you.
Thank you. Any other council member would like to be recognized during this proclamation? All right, if not, we'll go ahead and move down to, there are no public hearings, so down to item 7, ordinances, resolutions, and orders. Ms. Davis, if you mind reading item A, please.
Second reading, ordinance number 741, an ordinance to establish operating and capital budgets for the operation of the county government of Fairfield County for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2020, to provide for the levy of taxes for Fairfield County for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2020, to provide for the expenditure of tax revenues and other county funds, to provide for other county purposes, to provide for certain fiscal and other matters relating to county government and other matters relating thereto.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved and properly seconded. For discussion, if you guys notice, we've got approximately, I think 12, is that right? 12 amendments? 18 amendments? I'm looking at the wrong one. Okay.
Motions or amendments?
So we're gonna have to basically go through each one and do an amendment, or get a motion and amendment to change it, correct? Am I right, Mr. Morgan?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, at this point in time that we would require a motion to amend the second reading of ordinance 741 and the second. At that point in time, it would be before the council for discussion and ultimate vote. At the conclusion of all of the proposed amendments, whether they're on this list or not, then council will need to entertain a motion to approve the ordinance, budget ordinance as amended, thereby incorporating all of the individual or piecemeal amendments to the ordinance at that time.
Okay, thank you. So I think that's the best explanation for everybody. So if we could get a motion to amend the budget,
I'll make a motion to amend the budget.
Seconded.
been moved and properly.
Yes, sir. When it comes to motion to amend, each one of the
Each one
amendments
is gonna have to,
need to
thought.
be
that
specific.
is correct.
For example, I'm just looking, I believe the motions list that was, that I have in front of me, the first item indicates recreation.
Recreation, so we,
fees. So there would, the motion to amend the budget amendment, ordinance would have to address that particular item specifically.
Mr. Pauly, do you make a motion to amend motion number 1 for recreation sports fees, please, sir?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to take it off the motion list.
Motion's been made.
Second.
It's been properly seconded. Mr. Pauly made a
And-
motion to remove it off the list.
Can I state a reason for that?
Yes, sir.
The director had to credit everyone their fee for the spring sports because of the coronavirus. So it was in the recreation's best interest and the director's best interest to, because he would have to go around and collect $5 from everyone at this time. So we're going to try to include it in the next year's budget.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes unanimous will have it. Now back to the regular motion. Am I right, Mr. Morgan?
I move to amend, the budget to include the, fire service fees, the addition of service fees for the fire departments, and you can see the attached schedule for the new fees, and that should add about $20,000 to the budget.
Well, the motion's been made and, to amend the fire service fees. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, what are we jumping around for?
Not jump around, Mr. Douglas. This is item number 2.
Oh, well, okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now down to item 3. Can I get a motion for the fee schedule?
Make a motion that
Amen.
fee schedule.
Motion's been made. Can I get a second?
Seconded.
Properly seconded to amend the fee schedule. Any discussion? Is it possible to get an explanation, Mr. Taylor? For the public purposes, please, sir.
Included in the packet of stuff that went out, I guess, on Friday, there's a copy of the fee schedule. It's the fee schedule as it exists now. There are a few changes that were highlighted in yellow. And most of those were just updating existing fees. Do you want me to go through each one?
No.
It's not necessary, no.
Okay.
Just got.
No.
It's just updating the existing fee schedule.
Council members, Mr. Trapp and Mr. Douglas, would you mind muting your phones? And getting a little
All right.
feedback from you.
Still get it?
Yes, sir. We're good now. Thank you. Sorry, where were we at now?
To take the vote.
Okay. All those in favor of the amended fee schedule signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I move to amend the budget to include option 3, reduce greater than $50,000 for 1% and implement January 1, 2021, 6 months of pay. This would add $190,298 back to the budget.
Mr. Bells went to item number 4 of the hourly.
Number 3.
Yeah, it's number 4 on
Yeah,
number 4.
yeah, option 3.
I got a question.
But hold on one second, Ms. Paul.
All right, go ahead.
Motion's been made for item number 4 for the hourly rate increase. Mr. Bell has motioned that we take up option number 3. Can I get a second?
Okay. Can I ask a question?
Second. Any discussion? Mr. Paul, go ahead.
Okay. So does each council member make their own motion? Or do we vote against his motion and not come up with another motion?
My understanding, we're gonna have to unanimous, well,
Yeah, you're right, yes. He's right.
Okay, yes, Mr. Paul.
If this don't win, you can vote to.
Okay, and I just want to make sure you actually can make an amendment to the amendment, or you can allow this to go forward. Option 3, the vote to go forward on option 3. Should it pass, then the only way that you could bring up anything else at that point in time would be a motion to reconsider if you are in the winning or prevailing side. So I'm just making up a hypothetical. It's not even on here. Let's say you were in favor of option 6. Then since option 3 is currently on the floor now, the vote would either be for or against option 3. And then at that point in time, if you wanted to change it, if you were on the prevailing side, you could make that motion to reconsider.
if we could, Mr. Calder, you just give us a little more background on option 3. Understand it.
And Mr. Chairman, just one final clarification, or Mr. Pauly can make an amendment to option 3 as it is currently written. So if, for example, I'm just reading option 3 as I have it on my piece of paper, reduce the 50,000, those making greater than 50,000 of 1%. If hypothetically you wanted to change that to a different percentage, now would be the time you could make a motion to amend as it relates to option 3.
Mr. Calder, I would just want a little more clarification before we get into, if we could, just get it from you
Okay.
with option 3.
So I think basically we figured that taking the greater than 50,000 employee thousand a year employees down from 1.5 to 1. I think that came out to be right at what a 2% or 2.5% overall increase would be the same as money wise. So the way the structure is set up is that it avoids us from having compression, which means, say, if you were to only give people less than 30,000 the raise, it will bump them up and they could potentially pass people who had higher classified jobs potentially. It would make everybody do this, and you really want to keep everybody separated out to a certain degree. That's why one of the advantage of the tier increase, but it just makes it harder when you pick out one class and say we're just going to do this. So,
Mr. Chair, got a question.
Mr.
But
Baker.
number 3 offers an opportunity for everyone to get a raise, correct?
yes, sir.
Okay.
No, I mean, is that everyone 50 and less, or everybody across the board is getting a raise?
Across the board, everybody would get something.
For 50 above, it's like 1%.
1%, yes, sir.
So.
Well, do we have to
this-
give them a
we have
raise
a
every
discussion
year?
now?
I'm sorry, Mr. Douglas, what, can you say that again?
I said, do we have to give a raise every year? If we are looking to save money this year because of the pandemic, why would we want to give a raise when we might not have enough to spend for the budget?
Chairman. I mean, I agree with Mr. Douglas. For the past 2 years, the year before last, we gave a merit-based raise. Last year, we did a cost of living raise. And supposedly, we coming in at a budget shortfall, and we're trying to save money. I just don't think this is a year where we need to do increases across the board for all of the employees. So it's a no for me.
So let me get this straight, Mr. Calder. This would bring our less employers making less up to the par which is needed.
Would get us close to where we're
Okay.
competitive.
This is still a tiered system. How that works as far as salary ranges.
Yeah, the way the tiers are designed, anybody less than 30 would get a 6% increase. 30 to 40,000 is a 4%. 40 to 50,000 is 2.5. And then the greater than 50 group originally was 1.5. And then one of the options in here is to take the greater than 50 group down to 1%. And then also, a second part of that option was to implement the system effective January 1st rather than July 1st. So we're only paying for 6 months. If we gave the midpoint, in the past, we've usually given 2 or 3% of cost of living across the board. So a 2%, if we did that across the board, the less than 30,000 group, that would be an annual increase of about $498. For the greater than 50,000 group, that would be an annual increase of about $1,300. With the tiered structure, it pushes the greater of that toward the lower paid employees. So with the tiered structure, the less than 30,000 group, the average annual increase is $1,493. For the greater than 50 group would be $957. So what it does is it really accomplishes getting the people on the lower end of the spectrum, keeping them kind of bumped up and competitive.
Okay.
Competitive with who?
Douglas.
who are they
Well, I
competing
mean-
with?
We're competing to get employees at this point in those levels. We're putting out job advertisements and we're getting their responses to a lot of them, especially on the lower end.
But if our goal is to compensate the lower end, and that's where the problem is, then why don't we do the lower end and not do it across the board for everybody?
And that is an option that we have in here also that council can choose from.
But as I stated, you don't want your low making almost as much as a supervisor, and
Compression issue
Yeah.
that Oliver mentioned.
so. Any further discussion from council? If not, I'll take a vote to, all in favor of option 3, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Let's do a hand raise on this one. Mr. Gilbert, Mr. Bell, Mr. Robinson, Vice Chair Goins, those were ayes. Mr. Trapp. Ms. Douglas? Can you guys hear us? If you guys are on mute, could you take it off mute, please? I think we might have lost him. Mr. Trapp, Ms. Douglas? Can you hear us? I think we might have lost him.
We call back into it.
Yeah.
We call them to let them know we've lost them. And
followed by the pound key. You are the first participant in the conference.
Maybe technical issues, I guess.
Douglas.
Mr. Douglas, can you hear me?
Has joined.
Douglas.
Jim Ray, can you hear me?
Has left.
Not getting anything. You guys want to take a quick recess till we figure out this technical issue?
Yes, sir.
Jimmy Ray, what's going on with the phone?
Somebody want to make,
Okay, all right.
we're going to take a quick recess.
He's trying to call in now.
I was cleaning up some stuff at my desk.
So what do we have to do to fix it?
For real?
I guess they got to call back in and figure out what's going on.
We got dropped off the conference line and we were the ones who initiated the conference. So we dropped off, everybody dropped out. But we're back on.
Hey.
Okay.
So did you call Mr. Douglas and Mr. Trapp?
They can call in now, they should be able to get on my cell phone right now.
Fine, you ain't wearing no mask today?
And I ran in, took a shower.
My personal space.
Douglas.
has joined.
Jim Ray, you hear us?
I'm here now.
Okay, we hear you. We're trying to get Mr. Trapp back on the line also. I'm getting called back in.
Oh, really? You know, I thought a person was on that. Oh, but I got beepers on you. But the free.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I do.
It was actually.
Get him?
I don't have it.
Yes. Because we're from that thought. Okay. Oh, you're talking about.
And that's what happens when you don't agree with something. You get cut off.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sure you sick?
Yeah.
Yeah. We,
Yeah.
Might be off.
egg, flour, and making. Like mozzarella.
Might be too many people.
I love them. So we found this little recipe we've been cooking. All this stuff.
You know what? Go on without them.
Cream cheese,
They want to vote, they should be in here.
like breadcrumbs, flour. You know, roll it in that. And then
Frank.
for like 15 minutes.
Has joined.
Ooh, really tasty.
I'm gonna fix some stuff if they don't hurt and do something.
All right, you guys want to go ahead and resume?
Yes.
He's in now.
He's what now?
I think he just come in.
No, that wasn't.
That was me. To see if we actually had it.
Okay. Jason, we're gonna go ahead and resume. You ready? Okay, we'll go ahead and resume. Mr. Douglas, what was your, we were taking entertaining votes for option number 3. What was your vote?
My vote is just give the lower
Was that a
the
yay or
lower
nay?
wage earners the 6% and nothing to anybody else.
He got to vote on 3, either yea or
Yeah,
nay.
you either gonna have to yay or nay on option number 3.
Yay on 3.
Okay, so that's 5.
Which one we got to do?
Sir?
Which one is this on now?
We're still on number 4, option number 3. You was voting in favor of that.
I don't want a 6% and then lower for the next one, lower for the next one. Mr. Taylor said that there was another option in there.
Well, that's what I'm asking. We're on option 3 right now. Are you in favor of option 3 or are you against option 3?
If it's the tier, yes, I'm against it.
Amendment.
Now I'll let Mr. Morgan explain it to you.
All right. We've currently called for the vote. So at this point, we can't make any amendments because it's been called to a vote. So therefore, the options available to council at this time are to vote yes in favor of option 3 as it relates to item number 4, or nay as it relates to option 3.
All right, what is the yay or nay for?
Okay.
Give me is it the tier thing that Brad was talking about?
This is for, let let Ann run through one more time, the tiers that are.
No, I don't need anything again on the tier. I got ears. I heard her, but
Okay.
I need to know whether or not we're voting on that, because I'm definitely not for that tier thing because it's spending too much money.
Well,
Yes, sir, Mr. Douglas. That's what we're voting on now, Mr. Pauly. Option for number 3, which was the reduced 50%, 50,000 to 1%. That's the one we're voting on now.
Okay.
Are you in favor?
See, I wasn't on the phone when y'all did this. The phone cut off and I didn't hear that part.
What was the last thing you heard from us?
I don't think he's on.
Wayne Bath was talking. And then when Dougie started calling, the thing said the conference is over, and I got nothing.
Okay. Would you like you don't want Miss Bass to go back over it?
Oh no, I've already heard her. I like to know what happened when the phone cut off, so I know what to vote on.
We postponed to try to get back in touch with you guys. We didn't go any further.
Okay, what did Mr. Pauly say?
You mean repeat it?
Mr. Chairman, if I might, given these unusual circumstances and the fact that we had a council member attending by phone, and then during the pendency of the discussion, while it was going on, the phone call cut off, that could have been closed the door, for example, on any potential motions to amend.
Okay.
So going forward now with the vote may cut off any possibility for the motion, anybody to make a motion to amend, because we don't know when
at
who
what point in
heard
time, yeah.
what.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to make this any more difficult than it has to be, but at the same time, I want to make sure all of council has their right to get their say and their vote in. So given the circumstances, Mr. Chairman, what I would say is let's back this out of the vote. And that way, if anybody wants to continue the discussion about option 3 or make any amendments, they can make that amendment, and then we can kind of work our way back. That given the circumstances and some of the technology issues, I think that might be the most fair way to handle this.
Sounds good to me. Is that okay with council?
Jimmy Ray, need to repeat what I said.
Yeah, go ahead and repeat. You was asking what Mr. Pauly stated, Ms. Douglas.
Right.
Mr. Pauly was,
Mr. Douglas and the rest of council, I said that I don't think we need to do the tier. 2 years ago, we did a merit base. Last year, we did a cost of living raise. And I don't think, with us having a budget shortfall this year, that this is the year to do the tier program.
I agree.
Okay. So it's council.
Okay, but let me, Mr. Chair, may I say something? And I want my motion to go ahead and pass, okay? But the only way you can get out of this, Mr. Pauly or Mr. Douglas, you're gonna have to make an amendment to my amendment for it to go forward. Okay, I'm just telling you how it's gotta happen.
Is that, Mr. Douglas, are you understanding?
Yeah.
Well, we would have to vote on his motion first, all right?
No, you don't.
Can't do it.
Yeah, you can't.
Amendment to the motion.
Yeah, you have to make an amendment to my amendment to get it changed.
He just did when he read it to me.
He did not.
Okay, well, I'll make an amendment not to do the tier program this year.
Motion been made to not to do the amendment this year. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Douglas. Any discussion? If no discussion, all those in favor of not doing the tier signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Got 4 opposed and 2 in favor. So that motion fails. Now back to the original, no, Mr. Trapp is not online if I'm not mistaken. So back to the amended motion, which was Mr. Bell's.
Original. That's the original motion.
Yeah, back. So all those in favor of option 3 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
4 in favor and 2 against. Option 4 passes. Now down to item number 5, longevity amendment.
I make a motion, Chairman, that longevity would be 5 years or longer employed with Fairfield County.
Motion been made to amend longevity policy to 5 years or greater only. Do I have a second?
Um, You second?
It's been
I did
seconded.
second.
Any
I would like, I would like to amend the amendment to include option 4. If I can get a second.
Second.
Mr. Bell has made a motion to amend the option 3 to option 4, and it's been seconded by Mr. Pauly. Any discussion? Any discussion? If no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, we on his amended motion? Okay.
Let's signify by raising hands. All those in favor of option 4, which is nothing, raise their hand. 1, Mr. Douglas.
I got my hand up.
That's 2. That's in favor of doing nothing with longevity.
I thought you voted.
All those against? And 4 against. That motion fails. Now back to the original option, option 3, existing policy greater than 5 years only. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Mr. Douglas?
It's raised.
Didn't he just vote against?
Yeah, I'll just take a picture with my camera and I'll send you the picture.
All those against option 3, raise your hand.
I'm for it.
Option 3 passes.
Now, Chairman, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
The current longevity policy that we have, don't we have to,
Amend it.
we have to, okay, okay.
We'll bring that back to you all.
Mr. Douglas, is that your feedback? All right, now down to motion number 6, amendment of the recycling attendant pay increase. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we do that pay increase for the
Motion been made
recycling.
to amend the recycling pay increase to what option, Mr. Douglas?
Number 2,
Option number 2, which
wasn't
is,
it,
That's 30 cents.
that's 30 cents an hour. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Bell.
Chairman, I'd like to make an amendment to that.
Uh,
I'd like to, we are going to do the tier, so that means that they're going to get a raise. Am I correct in that?
No, sir.
Oh, they do not?
Are considered temporary employees.
I withdraw my amendment.
The amendment been withdrawn.
I want to make an amended motion
Mr. Pauly?
that we do option 3. They just received an increase not too long ago. So I make a motion to do number 3.
The amended motion to option 3. Do I have a second?
second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Douglas. Any discussion? As far as discussion, I will just say that we did just do a increase, but we kind of singling out
But
one part of,
Mr. Douglas made the motion for option 2, then he seconded option, then he seconded the motion for option 3.
Mr. Bell, he can
Well,
actually do that in
I
order to
didn't-
bring
I
the
didn't
motion up
realize
on
that
the
we'd
floor for
get
discussion.
Hold on,
raise
Mr.
this year.
Ms. Morgan, can you repeat that, please? I couldn't hear.
Yes, sir. I apologize for any stepping over or speaking over anybody. To clarify, Mr. Douglas can make that second in order to bring the item up for further
He
discussion.
made the motion, not the second. I second.
He seconded option 3. That's
Yeah.
why option 3 that was made by Mr. Paul is currently up on the floor discussion at the moment.
As I was saying, we're kind of singling out temporary employees, and I do believe they may deserve an increase, but what precedents are we setting by only singling out certain employees? Because we do have other temporary employees, am I correct?
Absolutely.
So that's just my spiel on that. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I like to amend the amendment to include that, that all, temporary, part-time employees that's not getting a raise through other means be given 30 cents per hour raise.
That's not currently on the motion sheet, is it?
No, sir.
Don't make any difference.
It is not currently on there.
But it don't make no difference.
Mr. Bell has made an amendment to the amendment to, I know that's a mouthful, right? To give all employees a, what is it, 30 cent
Yeah.
raise?
But Neil,
Do I have a second?
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I mean, without knowing the impact cost-wise, I mean, how could you even vote on that?
Let's bring it up for discussion then. Talk about it. I agree with you.
I don't have a second.
Do we have a second for that? There's no second, so that option fails. So now back to,
I'd like to amend to go to option 1, to 50 cents per hour.
motion's been made by Mr. Bell to amend the amended amendment. Go to option 1, 50 cent per hour. Do I have a motion? Well, do I have a second? No second, that motion fails as well. Now back to the amended amendment. Y'all making me work today. Which is option 3, correct? All those in favor of doing option 3, doing nothing, signify by saying aye, raising the right hand.
Aye, and raise right hand.
All those opposed?
Aye.
There is 5-1. 5-1. Option 3 it is.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
since that was an amendment to an
Amendment.
amendment, now we need, so
Go back to the original
we
amendment.
need to go back. And so at this point in time, option 3 just passed by a 5-1 vote, but that was amending
That was amending the
the
amendment.
option 2, which was the first amendment. So now we need to have a vote to approve as amended. Ergo, that would be the option 3 selection.
I think we had about 6
Option,
amendments.
option 3 meaning what?
Now, I'll entertain a motion to amend the amendment.
To approve as amended.
To approve the amendment as amended.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
It's Mr. Bell's nay, 5-1. Now down to option, motion number 7, Veterans Day as a amended holiday. I entertain a motion. No motion, that motion fails. Now down to motion number 8, tax auditor position request, the amended tax auditor position request. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion?
Explanation?
Explanation, please, sir.
You do have, well, Brad or Gary.
Want me to go? Okay.
I'm sorry, yes, I'm sorry.
My turn. The amendment, excuse me, this would be providing clerical support for, tax auditor's office. We only have 2 employees in there currently, and it's only one of a couple of departments that we have with only 2 people. There's a concern there, for a risk of losing a lot of knowledge and, experience. I think we kind of communicated that last time, but this will give the auditor an opportunity to provide a good bit more training to the person currently in there, and allow them to not have to close the office altogether if somebody's sick or out or something of that nature. Also, there's some more additional state requirements and law changes that's kind of made the workload there really difficult for those two people to manage.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Bell?
This is currently not in the budget today, and that would add another $40,000 to the budget.
That's correct. Any further questions?
Let's be clear. This is Ms. Hensley's office, correct?
That's right.
That is correct. No further question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
5 in favor and one against.
Now, one of the things, our salaries and fringe is 57% of the budget.
That's correct.
Y'all know that, right?
Now down to motion number 9, the tax assessor position request amendment. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion?
Can we,
Once again, could we get an explanation? Just for public knowledge, please, sir.
Mr. Gary Hensley, our tax assessor.
Thank y'all. What we're looking to do is just replace a temporary position that we have, make it a full-time position so that we can allow that particular person to do more, to be an appraiser. Right now, we have 3 appraisers, including myself. 2 of those guys split with GIS and with Forfeited Land Commission, so it's taking up a lot of their time.
how many employees do you have, Mr. Hensley?
4 full-time
4 full-time and 1 part-time?
and 1 temporary.
Mr. Chair, what would happen if we allow someone else's office to take a part of the Forfeit Land Commission?
That would bring back my appraiser, full-time for that position, yes.
Okay.
I'm for replacing the part-time help, and that's it.
Any further discussion from council?
Can I add something?
Go ahead, Brad.
How many employees, when y'all were fully staffed, did y'all used to have? Did you lose 2 appraisers over the years? Or
We lost 2 appraisers over the years.
So they're 2 short than where they were.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And
Actually, they're not short because the guy that's doing the forfeited land deal for the county, that's probably a 2 or 3 hour job a week. And he could be doing the appraising and stuff there and doing the forfeited stuff without any problem.
Is that possible, Mr. Henry?
Mr. Douglas, he is right now. The Forfeited Land Commission is taking up a lot of his time at this point. I foresee, probably a year, maybe 2 down the road, that's probably going to lighten up a little bit. But right now, it's pretty heavy on him.
Well, how much work is he doing per week? Because from what I see, the only time he can do anything is when the commission meets. And I know they don't meet every day to give him instructions.
And from what I understand, and I don't have anything to do with Forfeited Land Commission, it's not under my umbrella, but he's doing a lot of background work and researching how to deal with these properties and that type of stuff. But for the true ins and outs of it, I'd have to let somebody else speak to that.
Well, he needs, if he doesn't know how to do it by now, need to get somebody else because he's not learning very fast.
Anything else, Mr. Henry?
No, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Again, Mr. Chair,
Ms. Bell?
salary and fringe, 57% of the budget.
Ms. Taylor, you got anything? If
How many
not,
how many hours is he currently working, Mr. Hensley?
For the Forfeited Land Commission?
No, how many,
Or-
he's a temp or part-time?
No, he's full-time.
So I thought we was moving a temp to full-time or a part-time to a full-time.
I'm replacing a temp position, just doing away with the temp position and replacing it with a full-time is what I'd like to do. It just allows.
So what would you do with the temp? We let him go or hire someone else?
He's
or hire the
retiring.
temp?
It's Mr. Bonson. He's retired, so he's going to move out. I mean, he's not going to be there anymore.
Any further discussion? Not, all those in favor of the amendment tax assessor position request signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Hey,
Nay.
2 nays. 4 favor, 2 against. Now down to item 10, code enforcement position amendment. Do I have a motion?
So moved. I make a motion to, hire another code enforcement position. I'm aware that, we do have one, but my motion would be for it to be a part-time code enforcement position.
Motion's been made to amend the amendment to make the code enforcement position a part-time position. Do I have a second?
Second.
Been seconded by Mr. Douglas. Any discussion?
yeah, I move to amend the amended and to include it as is on number 10.
Question.
Mr. Bell has made a motion to amend the amended amendment.
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Gilbert.
I know we at 57% salary.
Any discussion?
In a temporary position, a temporary person, how will that help the workload? As far as when she's out, other things are going on. Would that really cover what needs to be covered, just having a temporary person?
Well, they have somebody in the back office, and they hired somebody recently. Now, community development's wanting to hire 4 different people now, and that's one of the community development's hires they want to do.
That's why, Ms. Berth, I'm looking at it like you are. That's why I'm saying to have it stated just as it is on number 10. To agree with you. That's why I made that motion. Second by Skip.
I agree that Ms. Johnson needs some temporary help, but she doesn't need it full-time. That's going to add to everything else, those 5 things added on top of the salary.
Any further discussion from council? If nothing further, all those in favor of the amended amendment, amended by Mr. Bell to as is, which still will be a full-time position, correct? Signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
4-2 in favor. Now down to item.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
we've reached that stage where we've had an amendment to an amendment, so we've got to go back.
That's right. We got to go back now. That's
Yes,
right.
sir. Sorry.
That's right. I appreciate you. You get paid the big bucks to remind me that. I remember that. So.
I would like to see those big bucks in the budget, please, sir.
All right. Now I'll entertain a motion to take the.
Now,
I
have we
entertain-
discussed this amendment yet? Because as soon as it came up, we, he made an amendment to it. We've never been able to discuss anything on this.
I'll entertain a motion to amend, to accept the amended amendment as is. Do I have a second?
No, read what we're voting on.
I'm sorry. Could you say that again, Mr. Douglas?
I think is this still on the assessor's office?
You want me to
Oh,
read?
this is on for the part-time help for the
Yep.
the code enforcement.
Yes, sir. Mr. Bell made a motion to amend the part-time amendment to accept it as is, which would be back to a full-time position.
But that person
just
would only
like you
get
said.
hired January 1.
Yeah. I'm sorry, say it again, Mr. Douglas.
Yeah, I think he's a little mixed up. You still have to pay him next year.
Okay. Now back to,
The voting on it.
I'm good. Now I'll entertain a motion to accept the amended amendment as is.
So move.
It's been moved. Can I get a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed,
Nay.
Nay.
4-2.
See, I don't think that's correct.
Now down to item number 11, the detention center kitchen supervisor, the amendment. Do I have a motion? No motion, that fails. Now down to item 12, Ridgeway Community Center amendment. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I move that we put $400,000 in the budget to begin the work for a community recreation center in District 1.
Motion, a motion to amend been made for Ridgeway Community Center to put $400,000 in district. Do I have a second? Do I have a second for Ridgeway Community Center? No second, that motion fails. Item 13, food bank. That was a motion that I did, but if you guys can currently read the notes, I'd be more than willing to take it off because they're not willing to.
I make a motion that we take it off.
I second it.
The amended motion's been made to remove the food bank and has been seconded by Mr. Pauly. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Guys have it. Now down to item 14, behavioral health amendment. Do I have a motion?
So move, Mr. Chair, to allocate $26,500 to the budget for Fairfield County Behavioral Health.
Second it.
Motion's been made to amend behavioral health board to allocate additional $26,500 to behavioral health. Do I have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, you made the motion.
Right, and it's been seconded.
I think it's time for a break, maybe. It's been seconded. All those in discussion.
Chairman, I have
Yeah.
a question.
Yes.
Mr. Douglas. I'm sorry, Mr. Paul.
For county attorney, since I'm currently on the board at Fairfield Behavioral Health, would I need to excuse myself?
You're on the, Mr. Paul, as I understand, you're on the board of directors or trustees on behalf of Fairfield Behavioral Health. Is that correct? I just want to make sure I understand.
Yes.
Okay. Given the circumstances, it probably would be best that you recuse yourself just to avoid any appearance of impropriety. I'm not saying that there actually is any, but just for purposes, it might be best for you to recuse yourself as to this discussion and vote.
Okay, I'll recuse myself.
This is reflected in the minutes that Mr. Pauly is recusing himself, and while we on the behavioral health, I'll just say I do believe behavioral health is a great entity. Just keep in mind we are making budget cuts within the county, so I just want to throw that out there.
I want to ask,
but what-
Mr. Chair, was there an explanation of the additional monies, the 26,000? Breakdown,
Do we have a breakdown,
an itemization or?
Ms. Johnson?
She looks for that as primarily for housekeeping, essentially, and groundskeeping, from what I understand.
26, where are my glasses? 26,000 for janitorial services and supplies. Originally, it was basically a $56,000 increase, 26 for janitorial services and supplies, and another 30,000 to reimburse for substance abuse treatment services for uninsured or underinsured persons. So with the 26.5, I'm assuming that that would be, the request is, I'm assuming that would be the janitorial service portion.
I had a conversation with Mr. Kennedy on the day, and I asked him about that 26.5, and he stated to me that that was based on the fact that the county had promised them when before they built the building that they're in, that they were going to take care of the maintenance and the housekeeping portion of it, and it would just pull from under them without notice thereof, and that it had been sort of a strain on their budget to try to keep up with this. So he's just asking us to, kind of help with their housekeeping and their lawn service. He said that,
Now, this money is just for the loan service and housekeeping. Why would we need the housekeeping? I can understand the loan service.
Do you mind if I speak to that?
yes,
Back in July, so I sent an email. What I found out is that the inmates were going to clean the building, and our building maintenance people were going to cut the grass. So inmates are not supposed to go on non-county property, and our building maintenance people are to clean, for our county building. So
That's one of the things that we got hung up on before.
yeah,
When
so,
we first had the contract with behavioral and gave them that money, they were supposed to do the cleaning themselves on the inside, and the county was only supposed to cut the grass.
And we had provided those services in the past because in the past, they were in one of our buildings that we owned.
Okay.
Currently, they're in a building that we do not own.
so I wrote an email to that effect in July regarding all of that. So saying that we would discontinue doing that.
yeah.
Right. Well, thank you.
Any further discussion? Being that Mr. Pauly has recused himself, I guess this question is for Mr. Morgan. What happens in the event of a tie?
In the event of a tie, it does not pass, it would be considered would not go forward. It would be considered a denial.
Any further discussion from council? If not, all those in favor of allocating an additional 26.5 to behavioral health signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is that 2 ayes? All those opposed? Nay.
Hey,
That 2, 3? 3 in favor, 2 against.
I thought it was 3 against and 2 in favor.
Thank you, sir. Now down to item 15, amended Chameleon Inspirations Learning Center. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? No second. That item fails.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to amend the motion to include Chamberlain Inspiration Learning Center of $4,000.
But if technically he would not have to make that motion if the motion fails, correct?
Right.
That could be on,
Huh?
be in the budget already.
Okay, it's already, okay.
Do you wish to?
I withdraw as long as it's in the budget.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion on it?
Yes, sir. Discussion. Oh, we hadn't did this,
I don't think we've gotten a second so far.
getting ahead of
Yeah,
ourselves.
yeah.
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 No, it's already been,
Do you have a second?
I second.
Mr. Gilbert seconded. Any discussion about item 15?
Yes.
on the Chameleon.
Yes.
The Chameleon is a private business. If you're gonna support them by giving them money, you need to take every small business in Fairfield County and give them $4,000.
Ms. Johnson, can you explain the Chameleon Inspiration Learning Center and whether it's a profit or nonprofit organization and whether or not the director receives any kind of income from that location?
I can tell you, according to the packet, they are 501c3, and sometimes that's organizations who oftentimes give to. They've been getting some funding for us for several years now. They used to have a grant, and we were helping to supplement them with the grant. And since then, that grant was only for a certain number of years, and they have since then lost that grant to help with some of their expenses. So really, the 4,000 that they're asking for, if I could get my paper
But
right, is going
Ms.
toward,
Johnson, can I ask you a question?
yes. If I get the right one. Yes, sir.
When we was helping with when they had the grant and we also was helping, they also was paying rent for a building, correct?
Yes, I do believe that they were
Do you know if
asking.
they currently pay rent for a building or if they being furnished a building free of charge?
According to their packet, they're not asking us for any type of rent.
Right, because they're not paying any rent. That's the reason I say you don't need to give them any money.
But their request, their packet for the 4,000 is asking for various things such as supplies and
Well,
utilities.
that's great. I know
and
it's a lot of
printing.
small businesses in Fairfield County that need supplies and stuff too. If you're gonna go out of the box like this and give them $4,000, the people in Fairfield County and Winsboro deserve $4,000 apiece in the small business.
Can you tell me how many students they have?
Well, I know for a fact she's making money because when she was in another building, she was going to close it because she wasn't get enough money.
It doesn't have in her packet the number that she serves, but it's after school and summer programs, pre-K through 6 for Fairfield County students. And in 501(c), I mean, it is nonprofit.
This entire budget is a representative of this council. Okay? It represents us and our thinking. So again, I think this $4,000 should go forward.
Any further discussion from council before I take a vote?
And it also,
Sorry, go ahead.
okay, and it also helps support our children, our students. And that's what we have to look at in certain situations. I understand that we are critiquing the budget, and I understand our circumstances and conditions at this particular time, but we also have to look at what we're investing in.
Any further from council?
Why don't the county just go and buy the thing, let her have it?
All those in favor of the amended Chameleon Inspirations, the amended, hold on. Is it the amended amendment or is the amendment?
No, it's just an amendment.
Just the amendment, okay. All those in favor of the amended $4,000 going to Chameleon Inspiration Learning Session signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure that it's clear for everybody that may be following along at home. Item number 15, which is the Chameleon Inspirations Learning Center, that would be removing $4,000.
No.
No.
It's not the council.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
that's how it's written in this
Written, but I think
packet.
to give it to them.
That's what I just wanted to make sure. If we refer it to it as item number 15, that would be the removal.
Okay.
Since it's already there, there's
It's already
no
in the
need, it's already in the budget, so there wouldn't need to be adding an additional 4,000 unless that's what council's intent is.
No.
So right now, as item 15 is written, that is to remove $4,000 from the Chameleon Inspirations Learning Center, the budget that the line item allocated to them. So a vote in favor of item number 15 would be to take out $4,000. A vote against item number 15 would be to leave that $4,000 in the budget, leave the budget intact as it relates to that line item.
we're voting to leave it intact. So what do we need to do? I'm part of it. So do I need to reconsider?
Okay, if you made the motion as it relates to number 15 and your intent was to leave that $4,000 in by bringing it out, what you have done is you have asked for that 4,000 to be removed. So you
No,
can
no.
withdraw your motion, and as long as the second will also agree to withdraw, then you can take it off the table.
No, I didn't make the motion then.
That was,
No.
I'm sorry, and I apologize.
Yeah.
My notes are starting to get a little,
yeah. Do you, Mr. Gilbert, wish to withdraw your second and Ms. Goins?
It's already been voted on.
Withdraw.
Mr. Gilbert is willing to withdraw, and Ms. Goins, you willing to withdraw, therefore it stays?
Yes.
Okay.
okay, now at this time, because it's back out, it's open for anybody to make a motion. So
Okay.
if, for example, somebody wanted to remove the $4,000, now they can make the motion as it relates to item number 15, which takes away $4,000 from that line item in the budget.
So, but if we leave it like it is, it stays in, right?
Correct. If there's no further action on
Number
this
16.
item, then it stays as is, correct?
Well, I make a motion to remove it.
Mr. Douglas has made a motion to remove the $4,000 from Community and Inspiration Learning Center. Do I have a second? No second, that motion fails. Now down to item 16, which we are getting into vehicles. And this is gonna be real fun. We all shuffle it. First, we have the Community Development Center, a Dodge Ram and extended cab 4x4. Two of them. Is that correct? Two of them? The amendment. Do I have a motion?
Who these trucks going to?
Community
Yeah,
Development.
when Ann got me the list of stuff that was going to be talked about tonight, she didn't give me a list of numbered stuff like that. I'm having to go everywhere to try to find it.
You don't have that
I
two-page list, Mr.
don't-
Douglas?
No, what I got here is a motions list, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and then number 4 was community center in Ridgeway, and that wasn't what y'all did talking about.
Yeah, I think
So,
Yeah,
so I've been jumping around trying to find out where you are.
yeah, I think you've got the older one.
We didn't have, we took that.
I don't have the list of things in order that we're discussing tonight. It doesn't make any difference. What I say doesn't make any difference anyway.
We've got three items left, Mr. Douglas, 16, 17, and 18. 16
All
is
right, now,
community
how about
development.
all these hirees for the community development? That's one thing you need to discuss because you got 4. Well, actually, we've already discussed one of them, the code enforcement. You got 3 others. They want to put 3 other people in community development and give them full-time jobs.
Mr. Douglas, we talking about vehicles now, though.
Like to clarify, we did not put.
Yeah, we didn't
there.
we didn't put the other ones on there, the positions.
Why?
I couldn't hear. Did he say something?
I think he said why, because
Yeah,
administration
I
did not
said why,
recommend them
because,
going to the council.
Administration didn't recommend it. Mr. Taylor just stated it.
Oh, they weren't to be voted on because they're not gonna get them.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, well, that's fine. That was my major arguments anyway.
I'm about half deaf in one way, y'all. All right, back to item 16, community development. Dodge Ram and extended cab 4x4, 2 of them. Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion for item 16? No motion, if no motion, the item fails. Now down to item 17, fire. We have I think it's a F-250. It's a F-250 truck 4x4 with service body, used for training officer and extraction equipment will be housed in this truck. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second it.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion?
I got a question.
Mr. Pauling?
There's no need for the truck if we didn't approve the training officer, correct? Have we already approved the training officer?
Yes,
Yeah.
last budget.
Did.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I thought we did, but I want to make sure.
Yes, sir, we approved it. Any further discussion?
Now, what is the ones that's teaching him now, and then,
I can't hear.
what is he driving?
Say it again, Mr. Douglas.
The one that's doing the teaching and stuff now, what is he driving?
Mr. Douglas, this is Jason Pope. This is a temporary employee. They don't have any assigned vehicle. They're not a full-time employee of the county.
Okay. That's what I needed.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Bell?
I do have a question, Mr. Pope. One of the things is we was looking at the fire service list, fire service fees, and it says addition of service fees for the fire department is $20,000. Now, we're gonna add hours to this person, correct? The inspection, for inspection.
I think, I can't remember what y'all decided to do.
What we were looking at doing on that is we were going to gauge and see how much we were going to collect in these fees. And should we collect enough, then we would add more hours to the person.
Okay, but my point being is, if you add hours to the person, you will not be getting any money per year for the fees. Because the hours you add will be taken up by the fees.
That could be the case, yes.
Any further discussion from council? Mr. Pope, you got anything? Okay,
No, sir, unless anybody's got any questions about that.
all right. If not, all those in favor of approval of the amended F-250 truck 4x4 signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Now down to item 18, Sheriff's Department, 9 vehicles. Department request was 9 vehicles with its equipment. 3 are in the current draft. If the additional cars are approved, there would be an increase to the budget of $326,977. The average cost per vehicle is $33,711. Cost to equip the vehicle is $13,000. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion, we do the 3.
Motion's been made.
We
Do I
got
have
to
a
vote
second?
on the,
Yeah, hold on the vehicles, Mr. Gilbert.
Second it.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. Now discussion. Mr. Gilbert, you got anything?
I would like to amend the amended motion
Yes, sir.
to add 3 additional cars to his fleet. So that would be another 140,000.
So you're saying
He getting 3.
13?
Give him 3 more.
You asking for?
Total 6.
6.
Total 6.
Oh,
no.
Mr. Bell's made a motion to, amendment to add an additional 3, well, totaling 6 vehicles. Do I have a second? No second, that motion fails. Now back to the.
I would like to amend the motion to give him 2 trucks, 2 more vehicles, making it about $90,000.
You gonna select his vehicles for him?
No, I'm just adding the cost.
Okay,
There's 2 more vehicles.
so you totaling
Now, he getting 3, so give him 2 more.
5.
Yes.
Okay. Motion been made to amend the amendment by Mr. Bell, adding an additional 2 vehicles, basically giving the sheriff a total of 5 vehicles. Do I have a second?
I'd like to amend,
That motion fails as well.
I'd like to amend the amended motion to give him 1 additional truck one additional vehicle.
He's already got additional.
One additional vehicle. So he's getting 3, so give him one more. That'll be 4. If I can get a second.
Mr. Bell has made
Can
a
we-
motion to amend the amendment and add additional 1 vehicle to the, making a total of 4 vehicles. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, but
All right.
I need to ask the sheriff a question if this is the proper time.
Second, and now it's time for discussion. Mr. Pauly.
Can the sheriff tell us how many vehicles, patrol cars he's down at the moment, and whether or not the wrecked vehicles are being replaced by the insurance company? And if they are, what number that leaves you with vehicles?
Now, what's your question?
I'm aware that you have maybe 4 wrecked vehicles or 5. Is the insurance company replacing all 4 or 5 of them? And if they do, does that take away from the 9 that you're requesting?
No, that has nothing to do with the 9 that we're requesting.
Any further discussion from council? Just keep in mind, we are on the amendment for Mr. Bell, add an additional 1 vehicle to make a total of 4.
How about the truck we just bought him?
Say again, Mr. Douglas?
How about the truck we just bought for him, the
That's
$30,000?
that's not included in this this amendment. That was
Well,
a
that should
request
take
of
up
action.
for 1 there.
That was a request of action that we already approved.
Yeah.
So any further discussion from council? If no further discussion, all those in favor of the amendment by Mr. Bell of the additional 1 vehicle added to the 3, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
What was your vote, Mr.?
I'm voting for it, for the 1 truck, extra car.
4-2. Now back to the original amendment of 9 vehicles. Do I have a motion from council? Well,
It's 3.
3, I'm sorry, 3, yeah. I apologize.
So moved.
Yeah, I already got it, Mr.
All
Douglas.
right, gotcha.
Is there any further discussion? If no further discussion, all those in favor of the the original amendment signify by saying aye of 3 vehicles.
Motion.
Signify by
Aye.
saying aye.
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 All those opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
4 in favor, 2. I think that is it. Thanks, Sheriff.
Can I ask for 3 more officers at Mountain Zion?
You asked.
Have more deputies inside the office. If we're not gonna be able to put them on the road in the vehicles.
Do what?
So we can look at the plans.
We can look at the plans and definitely see. Sheriff was asking for 3 more officers. At
Officers
Officers.
to put,
Okay, officers.
yeah, we're not gonna have the vehicles to put the deputies on the road.
Let's get with Mr. Well, the thing is, the plan's been drawn out, correct?
They have, I mean, they're.
Yeah.
essentially-
Maybe we can look at getting another building for the sheriff's office then.
We can definitely sit down and talk about it.
Yeah, I think we got some land that we can build
Okay.
a decent building for the sheriff's office.
We can definitely sit down and talk about it. Thank you, Sheriff.
With his hair back up on back his neck.
Now, we have our second ordinance reading, ordinance number 748. We're gonna defer, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I think there's 2 things. First, we've got to go, since we've had these amendments to the ordinance, we have to approve the ordinance as amended collectively. But I believe, and I don't want to misspeak. I think Ms. Johnson may have.
We do have one ramification, and the vehicles not being voted for in one section leaves us, because we're gonna do a shuffle. We often do vehicle shuffles. That leaves us no vehicles to shuffle.
Sorry, if you go back, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
If you go back to number 16 for the community development vehicles, it states in there that if it's not approved, we were going to take the 2 vehicles that were already in community development and give one to public works and one to building maintenance. That
Why,
is,
when those vehicles have been used, they don't have hardly any miles on them, why even replace them?
And can I say something too?
Did you hear me?
Okay.
He said that they had
What did-
hardly any miles on it, so why replace?
I don't understand the whole vehicle transfer process and all that, how we go from departments to departments. But if you keep giving, say, certain departments used vehicles, they never get new vehicles. And whether it's Public Works or whoever it is, they
got
never
one
get
coming.
new vehicles. So that's not fair to certain departments to keep getting transfer vehicles for them to use for 20 or 30,000 miles. And then something happens to it, and then they have to get another vehicle that's used.
well, these 2 particular departments in question, they're not normally getting used vehicles passed down to them. The ones that community development was asking for was actually 4-wheel drive. And so community development has 2-wheel drives. So the other 2 departments could use the 2-wheel drive. So instead of buying those new vehicles, if we can, we try to transfer vehicles to other departments that can use them rather than sending them to auction and then going buy brand new vehicles. So these other
Well,
two
you need to
departments
tell
in
me,
questions were okay to use the 2-wheel drive if community development's 4-wheel drives had been approved. But since that's not the case, I think we probably have to address the other 2 requests now from those departments.
Mr. Douglas.
Chairman, it's nothing wrong with the vehicles they got now. How many times they could pull out of a place by a wrecker because they got stuck? None.
I think Ms. Johnson was saying the situation was that if we did buy the vehicles for community development, those 2 vehicles at the community development was gonna go to, I think, waste, where was it gonna go? Waste treatment, I think?
One to solid waste
Solid waste, yeah.
Janitorial.
and one to building maintenance for janitorial.
Okay.
Well, what are they driving now? The county's got a lot of pickup trucks.
Do they have?
Got a vehicle list there.
Yeah,
I
we-
can speak for Public Works.
Public Works.
A hand-me-down.
Where's the
He,
packet of?
he's driving a little two-door Colorado. The supervisor that they're requesting a replacement for is driving a 2-door Colorado, and it's been passed down too. So it's not enough room to carry supplies in and all that.
Okay.
And I will add too, the other supervisor vehicle in solid waste there has already had the engine replaced on it. It's probably got near 300,000 miles on it. So
The question I have is, we've already discussed and went through all the motion lists, all that's done. So what's the question now? Okay, shouldn't we just leave it up to you all to go ahead and do what you need to do with the cars and trucks?
I would tend to agree with that and just say, we'll figure
It'll be
this out.
fine to do it.
Let's
Let's
just,
move on.
All right.
I tend to agree.
All right, before we move on, we need to make a motion to accept the amended motions list as stated. Do I have a motion?
I move that we accepted all the motion lists except for adding the recreation building to District 1. If I can get a second.
Mr. Bell made a motion to accept as is, except except for adding the recreation for District 1. Does he have a second? That motion fails. Now back to the original motion of
I make
accept
a motion that we accept accept the
amended
original
amended
amendment.
motions list as stated.
Second.
It's been seconded. All those, any discussion?
Yes. I move to amend the amended motion so that we can, add, instead of 400,000, 300,000 to begin the work, for District 1 for Recreation Community Center.
Mr. Bell has made a motion to amend the amended motions list to incorporate $300,000 for Recreation Community Center in Ridgeway. Do we have a second? No second, that motion fails. So back to the amended motions list. It's been approved and seconded by Ms. Vice Chair Goins. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
The ayes have it. Now down to item B of our ordinances and resolutions. This is an item we need to defer to after executive session. Each council member should have received board and commission minutes from the hospital board and disabilities and special needs. There's no old business. No board and commission appointments, no old business. New business, we have one item, ad hoc committee for the purpose of exploring local and economic business assistance. Mr. Taylor, you want to elaborate a little bit if we could, please?
Yes, there are some counties, Shaw and Richland, neighboring counties, in fact, that are putting together economic assistance programs for their local downtown businesses and non-chain but local businesses primarily to assist them through this time that they're suffering with the loss of customers from the COVID situation. We have been requested by our Chamber of Commerce to consider something. We have reviewed what Kershaw has done, which is more appropriate to us than what Richland or Columbia have done. But right now, we're not making any recommendations. What in fact we want is a committee to come together with us and the business community to look at what might be appropriate for us to do and to bring that back to council. And so at this point, we really are looking for members to serve on that ad hoc committee to study the situation and to make a recommendation.
You need people from the town and the county.
We are exploring
That was my question too.
all options, Mr. Douglas, myself, and Mr. Taylor. So that was your question, Mr.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that the chairman has the authority to put together and form ad hoc committees and populate those.
You might want to add Ridgeway to it.
Thank you, Mr. Doug. There's no county administrator's report, no clerk of council's report. Now down.
Mr. Chairman, I think it would require an enactment or a vote to approve whether to go forward with that ad hoc committee.
Thought it was just an appointment.
No, it's just going to take,
Okay.
I think you can appoint it, but there needs to be an establishment of what the committee is going to study.
Okay.
It needs to make sure that that's clear on the record because the bylaws provide that the ad hoc committee has to make a recommendation within 60 days. And traditionally in those type of ad hoc committees, there's a very clear guidance or set of guidelines. So that
Okay.
way the committee knows kind of what, for lack of a better word, direction to go in.
Okay. At this time, I entertain a motion to approve the ad hoc committee for the study and purposes of the COVID-19 epidemic. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chair, I can move to do that, but the question I have is probably bigger than that, and I probably need Mr. Morgan to go through that. Because my thinking was that the chairman has the ability to go ahead and appoint an ad hoc committee and have that ad hoc committee do the things he believes that we ought to do. Without anything from, So that means any ad hoc committee he appoints, that he has to have approval from council. That's just my question.
And I apologize if I was unclear, but the ad hoc committee that was going to be recommended, the chairman does have the authority to establish that ad hoc committee. But what I would recommend for the record is that the chairman establish that ad hoc committee with clear guidelines about what he wants the committee to accomplish. And then that way that committee can perform the studies and then make the recommendations that are required by the bylaws within 60 days. So to the extent there was not necessarily a need for a motion to approve, it was just to establish what exactly. So as I heard Mr. Taylor say, it was about making sure that there is some type of potential assistance provided to businesses within the Fairfield County.
Fairfield County.
So
I so move, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank y'all. Actually, no county administrator's report, no clerk to council's report. Now down to our county council time. Any council member like to be recognized?
Yes, sir, I do.
Mr. Bell.
I want to read a letter from, part of a letter from Senator Tim Scott to the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. It's probably it's in the third paragraph, so let me read it. In addition to prioritizing providers caring for older Americans, I ask that you allocate resources to building testing capacity among underserved communities, communities of color, and communities with a high prevalence of health conditions like linked to severe COVID-19 related illness and death. As reported by CDC, data from the COVID-Net Surveillance Initiative showed that close to 90% of hospitalized COVID-19 patients in the catchment population had at least one underlying health condition. Among other comorbidities, near half of the hospitalized patients had hypertension, while more than 1/4 had diabetes, and close to 1/5 had asthma. Many of these conditions disproportionately affect people of color and lower income Americans. While the majority of cases reported to CDC still appear to omit data on race and ethnicity, preliminary national data, supplementary surveillance efforts, and state and county level figures continue to indicate that African Americans are overrepresented among hospitalized patients, population, and fatalities, as well as cases in general. With these disparities and heightened health risks in mind, I ask that you work to leverage safety net providers like community health centers, along with drive-through testing sites and other appropriate models to expand testing among communities of color and communities with a high prevalence of underlying health conditions linked to severe COVID-19 related illness and mortality. Another thing that we learned during the COVID-19 is that when they talk about underlying health conditions, there was a study done by George Washington University and by Howard University. And one of the things the study came back with, what causes these underlying conditions? Okay, one of them is that environmental pollution. And that consists of dumps in poor and African-American neighborhoods. They talked about smoke and incinerators, talked about dust, talked about power lines, talked about a whole lot of other things. But the second one was, it was not enough healthcare, not enough physical activities and physical facilities in poor, Black, and impoverished neighborhoods.
Neil, that's like I'm
What we tried to do tonight was try to get a community recreation center for the District 1, where the population, it is an African American district if you sort of look at it. But we tried to get that done tonight. We had no success. Okay, but if you look at the overall budget process, another thing that happened is Fairfield Behavior Health. Okay, they couldn't even get $26,500 to be added to their budget. look at this budget really represent this council, and it represents who we are. Okay, the budget this year went up $1.3 million. And that $1.3 million, I don't see any projects in that in rural and poor and black neighborhoods. You don't see it. So why? Okay, every time when salary and people will come up in departments that that really that reflected other things, that person was added. Okay, the sheriff department couldn't even get 3 additional cars. Okay, he have a big impact on our neighborhoods, and yet he gets nothing. He can't get 3 additional cars. He asked for 9. Only thing we was talking about was giving him 6. Okay, we talk about the budget and how the budget went up. It went up. Okay, I've talked to councilmen and other counties around their budget. Again, 56 to 57% of our budget is salary and fringe. Like, where are the projects? And where are the projects in rural and communities of color? Where are they? We need to do better. And again, this council, this budget reflects who we are. It reflects who we are and what our priorities are. I mean, look at it. If you go through this budget and you all feel good about it, I'll tell you what, one of the things that came along, and I don't normally do this, but for those who are people of faith, I want you to look at Elijah. One of the things he says, how long would you be halt between 2 opinions? I tell you what, you may not like me, and I can't make you do, but I tell you one thing, I will be on the right side of history, and I will do what's needed to do, and I will speak up for people who are struggling and for people who are impoverished and for communities of color. We must do better. This county must do better. We can't, if you look at this county and its population and its demographics, what do you see? And then how do you see that the money is being spent? Thank you.
Any other council member like to be recognized?
Chairman Robinson,
Mr. Paul.
I'm not going to dispute the facts that Mr. Bell brought in tonight. I will dispute that a community center is not the sole only thing that can get people healthy. You know, myself a year ago decided that I was unhealthy and decided to make a change. I lost 40 pounds, run 6 miles a day. I hadn't been to a community center in a year, hadn't been to a gym in a year. So if people want to get healthy, no matter what color you are, and that's your desire to do that, you can get healthy. You don't need a community center to get healthy.
And Mr. Chair, and I understand that, but we have Dorothy Park Fitness Center. We're gonna have Mount Zion. We're gonna have Barkin Recreation Center, all within 1.5 miles. Why is that?
Any other council member like to be recognized? If not, I just will put this little note in. I think this is on the county's website. It's Fairfield County Council. We're partnering with the Harvest Hope and Mobile Food Pantry on May the 16th, May the 23rd, and May the 30th. Fairfield County, May the 16th is Fairfield County Administration Building located at 350 Columbia Road between the hours of 12 and 2. You'll be able to drive up and get a mobile food pantry. I think it'll be like a little green bags we'll be handing out, I think. A little tote bag. Okay, well, that's good. On the 16th, be at the Administration Building. The 23rd will be at Ridgeway Fire Station. on Palmer Street, and on May 30th be in Jenkinsville Fire Station. All three times will be from 12 to 2. And this will be added to the county's webpage, so keep that in mind. If no other council member has anything, I'll entertain a motion to, I'm sorry, we do have two matters for executive session. A contractual matter, receipt of legal advice regarding purchase of certain real property in Fairfield County. And B, a legal matter, receive legal advice pertaining to the proposed acquisition of Providence Health Fairfield Emergency Room by Prisma. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I so move that we go into executive session for the following items, A and B, that's noted on the agenda.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor of entering executive session, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm sorry.
I apologize. There's apparently a new item that has come to my attention just moments ago.
Okay.
And would ask that we request an executive session to discuss the potential retention of experts to assist the county's legal team as it relates to a potential conflict arising out of the proposed wastewater treatment facility.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I move that the item that Mr. Morgan discussed be added to the executive session.
Mr. Bell has been moved and properly seconded to add an item C to executive session of retention of legal advice in reference to the proposed wastewater treatment facility. Experts. Okay, I'm sorry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Now we into executive session.
Where do we go?
Right.
Here?
No, let's go to the back. Let's go to the back. Jim Ray, you gonna call in for executive session?
Who you want me to call?
Sir?
Who you want me to call?
I'm gonna call you from my cell phone. How about that?
Frank. That'd be good.
Okay.
Mr. Bell, you can call me.
Thanks.
Oh, you can call Mr. Bell.
Yeah, yeah, because he's really not understanding.
Oh, ain't nothing in him but giants.
Are you sure?
Yes.
That's all.
He doesn't know
I know I put some
at all.
coats and stuff. Those coats right there.
Law is at risk because of this exoneration of general plan. He also said that there was
I didn't know we
a
Well, I just,
I called Moses, I'm wearing the light blue. I said, okay.
Please don't tell me we talk every day.
Oh, man. You ready? Everybody ready? Okay, it is what time? I don't even know what time it is. I entertain a motion to exit executive session and enter back into regular session.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Seconded.
Been moved and proper second in discussion. If no discussion, we are back into regular session. I think we have, I'm sorry, that is right. I'm rushing it. We do it every time. All those in favor of exiting executive session, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Now we are back into regular session. I think we have three things. Item B, ordinance, second reading, ordinance number 748, and ordinance authorizing Fairfield County to purchase certain real property in Fairfield County, South Carolina, authorizing the execution and delivery of a purchase agreement, an option agreement, and a right of first refusal agreement, authorizing the expenditure of certain grant funds and other related matters. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Seconded.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. I understand we have two motions coming out of executive session.
Okay, Mr. Chair,
Mr. Bell,
I would like to make a motion to authorize the county administrator to take the necessary step to protect Fairfield County interests as it relates to his efforts to build a wastewater treatment plant facility in Fairfield County to create economic development opportunities to better the lives for the citizens of this great county, Fairfield.
all right, Mr. Bell's made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now to item B.
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair Goins.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Council, I would like to make a motion that the county attorney be authorized to work with outside counsel to proceed with filing a request for a contested case with the Administrative Law Court seeking review of the DHEC COPA amendment process as it pertains to the sale of the Providence Health Emergency Room to ensure that the citizens of Fairfield County have a voice in maintaining their access to quality health care, providing I get a second.
All right, motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second. Second.
Been seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move, Mr. Chair, to adjourn.
And I second to adjourn.
Moved and properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank y'all.
Okay, all right.
Thank y'all. Yes, ma'am.